More than anything else, just ask any questions you want to ask. I'm going to start with a brief opening statement. Yesterday, my client was arrested on the Katy Freeway, and that arrest by itself was a dramatic showing of exactly why HPD is the wrong agency to investigate this case. I've been in touch with leadership in law enforcement all day long. They knew where I was going, that I was bringing him to surrender him. He was in my car, and they had at least 17 cars. I had at least 10 shotguns pointed at me as they pulled me out of my car. They had a helicopter. I've been in touch with them all day long. They knew exactly when I was bringing him in, and they did this. And they could have only done it because their judgment and their perspective is obscured by the fact that there's the death of one of their own. In this case, they don't need to be the investigative agency. They need to give it to the Texas Rangers or give it to the Sheriff's Department. They're too close to the action. If my office manager that's been with me a lot of years was accused of a crime, or if she were killed by somebody, nobody would think that I was the appropriate person to investigate it. The judgment and the perspective is just not there. In this case, the information that they have available to them, they tell me, is less than I know. And I suspect that's true. They have not even close to enough information to make an arrest, but the man is in custody. They don't know anything about how this incident went down, but the man is in custody. They don't know how this incident started. The man is in custody. I have the utmost respect for Ardas Avadio. He's a person that I've met, I like, but he's too close to the action on this one. If you read his comments that he has made, or if you watch the comments that he has made, he's jumping to conclusions all over the place about who was in the right and who was in the wrong, without any evidence. This case needs to be investigated first, evaluated second, and if justified, prosecuted third. It's not happening that way. They're making assumptions that are not justified by anything other than their blind faith belief in somebody that they trust, love, and have worked with. But you know what? Bad people do good things. Good people do bad things. You can't make those kinds of judgments based upon blind faith of somebody that you have experience with. You just can't do that and call yourself a law enforcement agency. This man does not deserve to be arrested yet. The evidence is just not there to substantiate how this happened, if it was criminal at all. There is not enough evidence for an arrest. Based upon what I know, and I'm not going to share with you just because it's way too premature, based upon what I know, I would be horrified and shocked if there is ever a conviction of my client in this case. And if you'll check out my record in the past, I'm not a blind faith believer in my client. If I tell the press that I have something, if I tell the press that I'm onto something, if I tell the press that something is not going to go down as it's being portrayed, I don't do that recklessly. Check my record. This is not going to play out as it's been portrayed. Another agency has to come in and take charge of the investigation. I'm going to do my own independent investigation. I'm in the process of that. I'm getting cooperation by law enforcement with what I need that they have access to. But that's really not my job. And when they're too close to the action, it's not their job either. I'm not an enemy of the police. I've represented over the years dozens of people from HPD on various things. Some of my closest friends are peace officers. But I don't believe they're infallible either. What I do believe in is justice. And this is not a way to start a justice proceeding. We cannot proceed based upon assumptions, guesses. We cannot proceed because we have faith and belief in somebody. We have to look at the facts in a cold, calculating, serious-minded way, and then make decisions based upon the facts as they unfold. It's not being done here. It has to go to another agency. Any questions?
What evidence do you have that this is the case? You have implied that they have made some bad decisions. You've implied that
Right.
The officers are not
Right.
fallible. But what evidence do you have that this is the
Well,
case?
let me tell you what I can share is what I've seen them release. What I can't share is what's been told to me in confidence. What I have seen them release is an assumption that he's there, that the officer was performing some type of valid police intervention. They start with that, with an assumption, without having any information. They start as an assumption that somehow my client was engaged in some type of nefarious behavior. They use that as a basis to go forward and look for anything that might tend to verify that. In this case, you have to evaluate the behavior of both of the people in the gunfight. And you have to do it without assumptions, without preconceived notions. You have to look at the things that you don't have as carefully as you look at the things that you do have. And right now, they have developed absolutely nothing that indicates that there was a valid police interdiction in progress. They've developed absolutely nothing that indicates that my client was involved in any type of activity that justified or deserved intervention. That's the evidence I have is what I read in the paper. I have additional stuff I can't share and won't share. But just what you read in the paper, each one of you are competent to read it yourself. It's completely based upon assumptions of what the interaction was like and who was doing something valid and who wasn't. That's just a given and an assumed fact, and it can't be.
How did they cross paths? Can you say?
I cannot say because the police don't know, and I'm not going to tell them anything right now that they don't know.
Was it some sort of a road rage thing, can you say?
I cannot say.
How did you come to know Mr. Soliz, and how did that knowledge of him bring you together yesterday to turn him in?
I've known him since he was a baby.
And how so?
His aunt was at one time my paralegal. I've known him since he was literally an infant.
So, who would you like to see investigating this?
The Texas Rangers, the Harris County Sheriff's Department, pick either agency, they're fine. I don't have a problem with HPD doing investigations of murders. They're almost always well done and professional and quality outcomes. I do have a problem with them doing it when they have a conflict of interest. I just want a non-conflicted agency doing this job.
The police portray Mr. Soliz as a gang member who's had a number of illegal weapon charges, got a great deal when he combined evading arrest and another case I can't recall. I mean, what's your response to that? What would you say to that?
I'd like to know what that has to do with this incident until there's some evidence that ties it in. It may be a fact of life, it may not be a fact of life, but it's not a fact relevant to this case until there's some evidence developed to tie it in. You cannot take a person's reputation and make an assumption of their guilt, and that's what's happening here. And they're completely tainting the public impression of what happened by tar and feathering a person before they have evidence to substantiate their beliefs.
I mean, how likely do you think the police will be to turn it over to the Texas Rangers or another law enforcement agency?
I don't see what they have to lose. I know Art Acevedo. He's an honorable man. I don't see what they have to lose. I don't know why they wouldn't. It only makes logical sense to, I think, any thinking person. I hope and believe that they will do that. I'm disappointed that it isn't their idea yet, but I have no reason to believe that they won't do it. It's the right thing to do, and either the Rangers or the Sheriff's Department, I'm sure, would be happy to step in if invited.
I mean, it's obviously a very emotional thing. It's a very emotional thing for the police department. It sounds like your fear is they are putting their emotions ahead of kind of building a case.
I have more than a fear of that. I have a certainty of that. It is emotional when somebody close to you is dead. There's no way to get around that. And if you're going to investigate the actual facts and the interview the witnesses, you can't be a conflicted person. I don't have any reason to believe that they won't turn it over. They need to. It's the right thing to do. It's what I suspect you would do. There's no downside to it. There's no reason.
Have you had a chance yet to talk to Chief Acevedo and ask that? I mean,
I have not. I have mentioned it to other members of the law enforcement community. I have not talked to the chief. I assume that he will see your reporting, and this will probably be the first time it may not be the first time he's heard about it, but it's the right thing to do. It's timely. We've got highly, highly trained, competent people at the ready. Why not?
But what about other investigations of other officers who were killed this year? With Harold Preston, do you think that investigation should be handled by them? Do you think?
I'm here to talk about this one.
Okay, but would you think that should be a blanketed rule?
If I were in a position of power, I would not want to act when I had a conflict of interest. But the only investigation I'm here to talk about is this one.
Well, can you talk about, with your experience, though, how other agencies who are in the similar situations have handled it in the past?
It's a mixed bag. It goes all over the place. Quality goes up dramatically, though, when it is referred to a neutral agency without a conflict of interest. The quality skyrockets. And, all any of us want here is the right thing to be done.
Where were you planning to take him to turn him in, and how did that day begin for you?
How did the day begin?
I mean, with him.
I, of course, got a call the day before. And I was in a position where I couldn't meet with him until the early afternoon. And so I made contact with the head of investigations at the district attorney's office and asked him to be in touch with law enforcement and let them know that I expected at some point later in the day to be able to report that I was going to be turning the man in. And then when we got into a position to where that was the case, I called him back and I said, we'll be coming in. And he told me to come to the DA's office, and he would have officers there to take custody of him, drive next to the door opening and let him get out of the car, and the officers would take custody. And I told him when we were leaving, I told him what route we would be taking.
Do you think that HPD did you wrong in that aspect?
What I think is that this shows us that HPD is too close to the action in this case. Their behavior was that of somebody whose objectivity is compromised. It just elucidates that we have to have another agency. We have to have the Rangers or the Harris County Sheriff's Department.
I take it your contention is you've been around for a long time. They know you. I mean, I take it your feeling is they should have no reason to suspect otherwise if you say, I'm going to be there with him at such and such time. And right?
We have past dealings. I've done this on numerous occasions. There's never been anything but perfect symmetry. I doubt very, very seriously that anybody would suggest that they would think I would do anything other than surrender anybody under these circumstances.
Does your client know the man in the video that police released, the surveillance video?
As I mentioned earlier, anything I have learned that's not being put out by the authorities is not going to be shared with you by me.
You're asking us, it seems, to doubt the intentions of the police department, but without providing us evidence. As you know, they don't give us all of the evidence
I
that
know.
they have, but they have said that there are witnesses. We have every reason to believe that they have witnesses who would back up what they are telling us is true. But you have not provided us any evidence to the
And I'm not going to, and that's not my role. But I'm not asking you to believe that they're anything other than conflicted. They have a conflict of interest. This is one of their own. He had been there for decades. I'm not asking you to believe anything other than this needs to and deserves to be evaluated critically by highly trained people without a conflict of interest. That's all I'm asking you to believe.
What was your client's reaction when he contacted you that he needed your help?
He was a very shook up and concerned young man that needed a lawyer. His reaction was very, very typical. Help me, please.
Can you tell us Mr. Soliz, Sergeant Rios, knew each other?
You know, I don't mind telling you that. They had never encountered each other at any time, to my knowledge.
But what they are doing, I mean, it is the normal, excuse me, even though you want an outside agency, this is traditionally how they would do this.
Well, that tradition needs to change. And this is a very, very touchy thing. We have a dead officer, and they don't have any scene video, they don't have any radio traffic, they don't have any of the normal tools that they would have for objective investigations. I think that tradition probably needs to change generally, but it certainly needs to change in this kind of a case.
Do you have an example of a law enforcement agency that does exactly how you think they should do it?
Well, sure.
Which one?
Nearly every agency outside of Houston and the surrounding area will turn these types of things over to the Rangers. Sure.
Can you talk about your personal experience when they pulled you over? What was going through your mind? And I mean, because it's obviously we're a bit shaken by it.
Well, it wasn't my best day. It wasn't the end of the world either. But I kept thinking, as I looked at this sea of shotguns pointed at me, I hope nobody burps. You know, please don't let one of these things go off accidentally.
I mean, could it have been bad for like maybe somebody in a nearby vehicle or somebody in the area, or?
You know, I suspect they terrorized all of the Katy Freeway because it looked like an invasion. It did not look like a law enforcement interdiction.
I mean, of course you can't speak for them, but I mean, what do you surmise or what do you suspect? They know you're on their way. Why do that? Why do you think they would do that?
Whenever you're that close to the situation, your emotions run hot and your logic runs short. I don't think they would do it if it had not been one of their own. But just because they are too close to the action and too conflicted, they behaved in an extreme manner. You know, all that does is reinforce the concept that we have to have an independent agency.
Without revealing the confidential information, you say you won't reveal. Do you believe that your client is innocent?
I absolutely believe that my client is innocent of murder, yes.
And he believes that he is innocent.
Well, I didn't ask him what he believed. He knows the facts better than anybody. If there is ever a conviction in this case of my client for murder, it will be a tragic miscarriage of justice.
At what point did you ever see the police coming on the freeway, or?
They got in unmarked pickup trucks, and they started getting in front of me, and I thought that I was the victim of road rage. They were squeezing me and pushing me first left and then right, and there weren't any marked cars for a while, and then they all caught up like a fleet. But they came and they started. I literally thought, I was about to call 911. I thought I was being the victim of a road rage moment.
Could you confirm what kind of car was driving Soliz Monday afternoon? That Mercedes? The police said?
I'm not going to go into that.
Do you think you have a conflict of interest? You said you've known Mr. Soliz since he was a baby. They're obviously very close to Sergeant Rios. Do you think that's a conflict for you?
Well, I mean, it's conceivable. When I say I've known him, I've seen him like 3 or 4 times, but I first met him when he was an infant. I've known his family. We've never shared dinner or anything like that, but who knows? Maybe I do.
I mean, you obviously are going to have to go to trial, and you can't stand there and tip your hand. But can you give us an idea? Is it that they've got the wrong person, or the circumstances are not what the police think
circumstances are radically wrong.
Mr. Soliz was there, but what you say or he says happened is the complete opposite of what the police say?
Well, I'm not going to say that everything is the complete opposite. I'm going to say that their conclusions, without evidence, are radically wrong.
That they've mischaracterized what's happened. Understand?
Completely. And they wouldn't have any way of knowing yet. They don't have any witnesses. But they shouldn't be concluding. They should be investigating.
Their press release, to be clear, does say that they do have witnesses, but we don't know what they have witnessed.
I kind of think I know what that is, but those witnesses have nothing to do with, they have no knowledge, or at least they have shared with me, that they have no knowledge of how this started, how it escalated. They have no knowledge of where.
Oh, HPD has told you that they have no knowledge.
Law enforcement has, yes. Okay. What they do have are seen witnesses for the final moments.
The final moment, so you're saying, did your client shoot Sergeant Rios, but you're saying that he shouldn't be convicted of murder for that shooting?
I am saying that if there is ever a conviction of murder here, it's just dead wrong.
Are you talking about final moments at the motel,
Yeah.
or prior?
At the motel. That's where they have their witnesses.
Thank you.
Anything else? Salud.
Thank you.